more yards, even if it's just 3 more yards. That's a huge benefit to the offense when you're moving the ball down the field. And with Tom Brady, that was a big thing because outside of Scotty Miller, and his speed reminding him of his youth and Julian Edelman throwing it down the field, Tom Brady is a systematic drive the ball down the field kind of quarterback. So he's not necessarily Jameis who's going to throw the ball 15 times, 25, 30 yards down the field. He's going to throw it to where the defense gives him an opening. Why? Because he's Tom Brady, and that's why we paid him $30 million.
So which receiver on the roster can step in if the trade happens?
Right now, where it stands, if you tomorrow woke up, you and me, we woke up tomorrow, and Chris Godwin got traded, I think Jalen McMillan is the guy. I believe now saying that, I believe they don't name him the guy. I wouldn't say they're naming him tomorrow the number 2 guy, because that would be an obvious question if Chris Godwin got traded. It would be the obvious question in the very first interview that the GM or the coach did. Who's going to step in? That would not be the answer at this point. By the end of camp, I personally would feel right now where it stands, I'm so high on Jalen McMillan, it's not even funny. And I'm not discrediting any talent that Trey Palmer has, but I also feel that Trey Palmer is a weapon, a valuable weapon if he grows and develops as he needs to in any offense. But I don't believe he's that, 1,000-yard receiver every year kind of guy. His size really takes a punch, and those guys have a very hard time of succeeding on that level. There's so many different levels for a wide receiver to have success in. If the guy catches a ton of balls and gets a ton of first down, that's a success in your position. If you catch the ball and get in the end zone a lot, if you're a red zone guy and your hands turn to, to sticky gloves, when you get inside the 20-yard line, that's a weapon for us. I also believe his size, speed, and his hands with his athletic ability, Jalen McMillan is ready, not necessarily right at this second, but would be more ready. Let me say it that way. He would be more ready than Trey Palmer in this situation. What about you? Who do you think would be able to step in tomorrow to take that role, mentally and move forward for the Bucs?
I'm going to go with you on it. I'm going to say McMillan. If I'm not going to say if a trade happens, because it still could. As we talked about, Godwin's contract is void at the end of the 2024 season. The Bucs would have to re-sign him. There would be no such thing as a franchise tag or anything.
Yes.
That being said, you would hope a long-term deal would be worked. If not, I am hoping McMillan can step in, because Godwin's not going to be in a Bucs uniform next season without a new deal.
Absolutely.
There's a higher chance, and if you go and look at it, there's a higher chance of him being traded than retained.
Let's play devil's advocate right here.
Okay.
We have a successful season. We're in the competition. We're in the division lead. We're vying for a high playoff spot, and we're looking really well this season. At this point, if Godwin's on your roster, you're not moving him. Because just like all the other 31 teams, regardless of getting value out of Chris Godwin right now, if you can win a chip with him walking out the door, that almost pays for the loss of Chris Godwin walking out the door. Now, in comparison,
the only way I would not keep Godwin is if I could, say we were struggling more on defense. Say all of our receiving core, the entire receiving room, say they were banging on all cylinders. It didn't matter who the hell you had out there. If we need a little bit of help on defense, shit, man, say Cleveland came calling, and we could get 2 value defensive players or even 3 and replace a Godwin and maybe one of our lower defensive guys that we really don't need.
Joe Tryon, we talked about that before.
Yeah, what if you can move it with him? And get a solid guy, a solid quality guy for your defense. That we'll be blunt, bro. We're still not 100% in our defensive back room. Our corners are still suspect. Our corners are suspect.
I think that's a question mark. I think our cornerbacks are a question mark of unsureness more than doubt right now. We're unsure of exactly how this room's going to go on. But yeah, go ahead.
But I mean, if even if we're in a good spot at that point, if you can gain more for him at that point, I would move him.
Yeah. My opinion, I don't think they're moving him. I believe, and let me rephrase that. If we tank from day one and we just can't get it together, he's going to be traded by the deadline. I don't have a doubt in that. If we come out competing and firing on all cylinders, I believe that his value, and let's be fair, we all recognize his value to be top tier in the league, right?
You know what? I'll go with you on one thing. Depending on how we look with everything, if we tank, Godwin's gone by deadline. Even if we're having a decent season, if there's solid, quality players out there that we could potentially move and grab, that another team's going to move, Godwin's bait. I think
he's definitely bait. He's bait until he's gone.
Godwin is definitely bait for the right person, for the right team. And of course, all 53 players are. But Godwin, knowing that contract, knowing it's dead cap, everything. That's bait right there in itself.
I agree. But let me say this. I believe the front office in the Buccaneer organization in One Buck Place is class personified. You look at the way a guy like Mike Evans has given them money just to win a ball game, all right? That also shows the willingness for Mike to do that, shows the type of organization that he's dealing with. So you got to take that into consideration. We can't always just look at Mike Evans and be like, yes, that guy's great. The organization is what's prompting him to say, you know what? I believe in you guys just like you believe in me. Let me help you out while you're helping me out. That being said, segue into what I believe, like I said, unless we are trash in the beginning of the season, Godwin's on our roster at the end of the season. I believe because of the class that Chris Godwin is, because of the class that our front office organization is, I believe unless we have the opportunity and the necessity to have that, return, I believe they let him walk where he wants to go get his money, how much he wants. I believe he deserves. I personally, if I was Jason Light, that's what I'd do. I would let him walk on his own because of everything he's done for the organization, everything he's provided for the organization. But it wouldn't be, again, you have to look at the long term with this. So going back to, if we're winning, we're not moving him before the deadline anyways, because now that being said, there's one caveat. The success of guys like Trey Palmer and Jalen McMillan during the season. The quicker those guys can succeed, the more apt we will be to push Godwin away, with the return as opposed to letting him walk. But I also believe that any team that trades for this guy has every intention on keeping him. He is very valuable unless you go with, even look a team like Kansas City. Kansas City has Travis Kelce. They have on offense, that is. They have Isaiah Pacheco's coming in his talks on contract over the next year or two, so he's going to want to get paid. You've got obviously you've got Patty Mahomes on offense. We're not even going to talk about the defense, and Chris Jones, guys like Chris Jones that just got signed, that take up a lot of cap space on that roster. They will find a way if they trade, if they're in the mix for it. I promise you, a team like I personally think that's one of the teams that will come after Chris is Kansas City.
You know what?
Especially if they're having problems in the wide receiver.
If Kansas City goes after Mahomes, or I'm sorry, Kansas City goes after Godwin, Godwin's not a long term for them. He's a rental.
Oh, I disagree.
I don't see. I wouldn't see him being long term in Kansas City because of what you're talking
I'd
about.
say that
Yeah.
I disagree, but I disagree on the forefront that the Kansas City wide receivers are showing exactly what they showed last year and not excelling. That's the only caveat with that scenario. You know,
Yeah, I get that, but he would be a rental because of the simple fact that they're not pulling their weight. Now,
yeah.
I think we're both in there. I think we both are in agreement, man. Godwin is gone after the 2024 season from Tampa.
I agree.
That being said, before we jump into this next topic, it kind of goes on to the topic, but would Chris Godwin deserve a spot in the Ring of Honor?
No doubt about it.
Okay.
If you take his statistics with the success that the Buccaneers had, and you even go back to before Tom Brady, the Bucs were a good team the last 2 years that Jameis was here. We couldn't get over the hump. We didn't show glimpses. We were successful. We couldn't win when it really mattered, though, and that had a lot to do with the quarterback play as opposed to everything else. Because you saw in those 2 years, guys like Chris Godwin on the sideline frustrated, guys like Mike Evans on the sideline frustrated. So it's not a surprise for anybody. It shouldn't be a surprise for anybody to think Chris Godwin would deserve to be in the Ring of Honor. Let's just say he retired in 3 years from now.
Yeah.
Would I immediately put him in? Probably not. There's probably 3 or 4 or 5 guys above Chris Godwin that I would put in first, just because of the length of time these guys have waited. Because there's a lot of guys that hadn't played in 20 years that deserve to be in the Ring of Honor.
Absolutely.
So and we'll get into that in a few minutes a little bit. But that being said, I do believe that at the end of the day, Chris Godwin's name will be on the Ring of Honor, bar none.
All right. Well, another player one of Godwin's, I guess, former teammates,
Yeah.
Gerald McCoy, thinks he belongs in the Ring of Honor. So let's talk about it. Does G-Mac belong in the Buccaneer Ring of Honor?
I respect that guy as a person, as an individual. I think he's a very cool individual. I think he's a good guy. I think he knows the game of football. I think he's an intelligent guy. But intelligence has nothing to do with being psychotic, because you got to be psychotic if you think Gerald McCoy deserves to be in the Ring of Honor, in my opinion. Now, for me, Gerald McCoy for about 3 to 5 years was the best guy on the damn team. He was that consistent. But after his first few years, Gerald McCoy was a very well-rounded player who, in my opinion, could have been so much more. I believe his personality got in that guy's way. I believe that, let me give you an example. I'm a defensive-minded guy. Anybody that knows me knows I'm a hard ass. Anybody that really knows me, there's an old buddy of mine that we have this dick face thing going on. Well, his name was Nick. The way it started out was his name was Nick, and my son couldn't say Nick, so he came out Dick, right? And in turn, he would call me a dick all the time because I'm like, growing up the way I have, I've been through a lot. I've put myself through a lot of turmoil, and I've overcame a lot of that, albeit, from my own jeopardies. But I over those things, diluted my sympathy for people because I saw, what it takes to get out of a rut, and it's not easy. And that doesn't say you shouldn't be sympathetic or even empathetic to people at all times. But it was really a struggle for me to be empathetic to people because I knew if I just got up and I moved forward, and I kept pushing, I could get through whatever I wanted to get through. All right. But I'm known as an asshole. That mentality on a defensive line would be like a platinum bar of gold, you know? And Gerald McCoy was the sweetest son of a bitch on defense in any locker room in the NFL. He was the nicest guy you could ask to be around. He was a joy and a pleasure. And you would only hope to hear these things from his teammates, you know, because in the game and in an interview, you know, you got a guy comes on ESPN and he's a player. He's an active player. He's talking trash. He's not talking sweet. He's giving players their respect and their due, but he's not talking sweet. Gerald McCoy talks like he's everybody's aunt. He wants to pinch a motherfucker on the cheek. He was too nice. And because of that, I believe he shorted himself in his career for what his potential could have actually led him to accomplish. That's why I believe that right now you got a long list of players that deserve to be in the Ring of Honor way before Gerald McCoy. Does he deserve to be acknowledged as a great player in the history of the Bucs? Yeah, he was a really great player. But the Ring of Honor are for people, and let's be clear, let's also include this guy's off the field stuff, because off the field you can compare him to the best. Gerald McCoy, what he did for the community, he tried to do for the community. He was a really big impact, but to me it was his on the field stuff that I believe. Look, after about year 3, I started disliking the guy just because of the way he was. You know, I really had a hard time buying into Gerald McCoy after the first few seasons because he was just all so chipper and he wouldn't get in there and, you know, like Mike Evans, take a fucking 15-yard penalty every night just to show him, motherfucker, I'm about that shit. Come test it if you want to.
Well,
and for a defensive player, I think that's what you got to have.
Let me go ahead and I know you said you were waiting to hear my take on this.
I am. I'm actually really interested in your take.
So here we are. Before I even answer the question, I'll tell you one good thing I like about Gerald McCoy. He never missed a game.
Absolutely.
123 games with the Buccaneers, 123 starts. I'll give him his flowers. Now, where I won't give him his flowers. In 9 years, you only caused 6 fumbles. 6. On top of that, 54 half sacks in that year, or in that time frame.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? There's not really much I can say in that. The dude hasn't had a forced fumble, bro. No lie, since 2016. He retired in 2021. Now, when you think of defensive tackles in a Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense, I hate using this man's name as an analogy, but it's hard to get away from, bro. Warren
I almost think I know where you're going.
Warren Sapp. Not to also talk about, bro, he wasn't defensive tackle, but Leroy Selman, bro, on that defense. Hardy Nicholson.
Look, let's go even further. Somebody I think, as far as defensive tackles, interior defensive linemen, in comparison to Gerald McCoy,
Get off of her.
Booger McFarland, to me, he was a lot shorter tenure than Gerald McCoy for the Buccaneers. I think he stayed 3 seasons.
Booger. Okay. I thought Booger was a really decent interior lineman. Like, he wasn't your Warren Sapp disrupt guy. He was that guy. He was going to eat your ass alive as soon as he got away from that block. If you ran in his direction, you were just running into somebody who was going to just gobble you up, man. And no, no disrespect to Boogers, man. That man was like flubber out there. He swallowed you, my man, and it was everything you wanted in a way. Warren Sapp gave you that little bit more of a hybrid to where he was getting with that speed. He could get through those blocks. You know, you put those two together and you had Simeon Rice at the same time. Like, bro, they were nasty. And then,
Hold on to that name because I'm going to mention it in a few minutes.
So, back to my original topic with everything. Gerald McCoy does not belong in the Bucs Ring of Honor. And I will put two names out there that will hit the Ring of Honor before he does.
Absolutely.
Chris Godwin and Chidi Ahana will be up there before he is.
He should be.
No, he should.
Before Gerald McCoy?
Oh, absolutely.
That's what I'm saying. He should be.
Okay. Before McCoy goes up, Chidi Ahana's name will be up, and Chris Godwin's name will be up. The only reason that Ndamukong Suh was brought in at the same time that we drafted Vita Vea is we needed Vita to be a monster.
And Ndamukong Suh gave him the ability to be that monster.
And you brought it up, bro. You don't pick up a quarterback and apologize. Oh, I'm sorry. Bro, that's the same guy. Bro, I knew something was up.
No, you step on his nuts.
Bro, here's the thing. That's the same. Hey, that is the last time we all heard from Chris Conti, too.
True story.
I knew something was up when Chris Conti when Roethlisberger was being apologized to, and then Chris Conti disappeared a little bit later. That's why I believe. Now, not saying McCoy didn't do great things here, but every bit of these stats that we talk about, if you go back and look at the tape, McCoy was around until halftime, maybe the third quarter. And you weren't a leader in Tampa. Ring of Honor is for leaders that were in Tampa. He wasn't a leader. Right. If you want to argue that he was, then why did a guy like Jason Pierre-Paul come in and automatically put him on the spot for dancing on the sideline during that blowout loss in Atlanta? Let's not forget that.
That game made me sick, bro. I don't even know why you had to mention that game.
That man left us, went to Carolina, vowed to make our lives hell. We weren't going to make the playoffs and all this bullshit. Couldn't even make it through an entire game because Ryan Jensen got him in his feelings. Didn't play the second game against us. Disappeared. Went to Dallas. I got injured. I'll give him that. But where did he go after that? He ended up getting traded. He got traded to the Raiders.
Yeah, Oakland.
Played one game.
Yeah. Now let's be clear. I think we both agree.
He's been dick riding ever since because that is all he's got. That was his only memories. 9 years in Tampa.
Yep. You're absolutely right, and I believe you're right. But let me give you, from my perspective, I believe that the guy had great ability. There's no doubt about it. But going back to what I said, I believe that temperament that he carried off the field and brought on the field was not the temperament that could give him what he needed to get those fumbles, to get those forced fumbles, to get a few more sacks, to get a few more tackles for loss, and to get what he needed to be in the conversation of being in the Ring of Honor. Great segue to who I believe should be the next Ring of Honor inductee, in my opinion, Simeon Rice.
Taylor.
Hold that name. I said hold that name a few minutes ago. 12 years he played in the NFL, right? I don't know exactly how many years he played for the Bucs, but he played quite a few years from the Bucs. All
I'll tell
right.
you right now.
He played for 4 teams. I know he played for the Cardinals too. He had 214 solo tackles. He had 38 assisted tackles. 100. I'll say this again. 12 years. 122 sacks. 8 fumble recoveries and 5 interceptions. He also played 3 Pro Bowls, was Defensive Rookie of the Year, and won a Super Bowl in 2001 with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, being probably the 5th best defensive player on that team, and that's a fucking compliment.
Well, okay, now, really quick. Simeon Rice had what? How many years were we talking?
12 seasons. Now, with the Bucs, I'm not sure.
Yeah, so out of those 12 seasons, he had 6 with Tampa.
6 with Tampa.
He had 5 in Arizona, 1 in Denver, and 1 in Indy. The time in Tampa, I will go ahead and tell you, man, 59.5 sacks. So, we were talking about Gerald McCoy. I will give him his flowers for the numbers of sacks that he has as a defensive tackle. But come on, bro. Simeon Rice blew your ass out of the water in less time.
Absolutely. He also had we can't necessarily, we don't have enough time to, technically dissect, where he got what stats at. But in an all-around picture, what he provided, if I'm old enough, I don't know, a lot of these fans out here might not be old enough, but I'm old enough to remember that before I can remember like 3 years before Gruden came in, right? When Tony, I think it was the second year Tony was here. He was what, 4 years, 3-4 years?
5.
I think it was the second year Tony came in. I really started, I can look back and see, like, I really jumped into the Buccaneers organization as a fan and really started focusing more intently on the team. And dude, Simeon Rice, the name Simeon Rice popped up just as much as Derek Brooks. Now we also, and let me be very clear, there is no comparison to those 2 names that I just said. Derek Brooks is a league above all the guys we've talked about outside of Mike Evans when it comes to class personified and longevity and what they should deserve once their career's over. But that being said, Simeon Rice, and let's be clear, like Ndamukong Suh helped aid Vita Vea in our defense, Derek Brooks helped aid Simeon Rice. But again, along with those opportunities, you have to achieve what you're doing. You have to actually be able to ascertain the plays and push through and actually get the sacks. You actually have to get the tackles. You actually have to get penetration. What Simeon Rice gave to the organization on and off the field while he was here in Tampa, from a leadership perspective, from a statistical perspective, from a class personified as a professional perspective, the guy was on top of his game his whole career, including the 6 years he was in Tampa. Mind you, the 3 Pro Bowls he went to were all in Tampa. He played for Tampa for all 3 of his Pro Bowls. He didn't go to a Pro Bowl after he left Tampa. That might have had a lot to do with the scheme that he was in, and he could have been a product of a scheme. But let's be clear. If you're put in a situation, it ain't shit unless you accomplish it and you can apply it to your situation. Unless you can apply your traits and your skill set to your situation, it don't matter. So he was given an opportunity and he succeeded. Gerald McCoy was given an opportunity. He didn't succeed. You mentioned it earlier. It was 2016, the last time the guy had a fumble recovery, and he played 5 more years after that, So from my opinion, you've got a lot of players. There's, like we've discussed earlier, there's a shit, we can argue all week about who we feel is the next 1 or 2 players that need to go into the Ring of Honor, and all deservingly so. But where we're at in our organization, I believe, you got to start representing those guys that built that legacy to get us to where we are. We had a winning culture and we lost it. We lost it because we didn't have the right leadership in place, i.e. John Gruden, which, at the time, I believe John Gruden, when he was fired from Oakland, LA, because of the situation that he had out there and all that bullshit, I believe he was also a better coach then than he was when he was in Tampa. He was a fresh cat on the league, in the league, and he went on. But I also believe that Monty Kiffin has a lot to say about Rondé Barber, has a lot to say about Dexter Jackson, has a lot to say about Derek Brooks, has a lot to say about John Lynch and as well as Simeon Rice, because Monty Kiffin, the inventor of the Tampa 2 defense, set a standard in Tampa, and all of those guys on that defense lived up to that standard every time they put on the pads. And for guys like John Lynch, Derek Brooks, Dexter Jackson, Simeon Rice, Warren Sapp, Rondé Barber, God, those guys right there, all of those guys should have their names on that Ring of Honor. And we didn't even talk about the offense. That was just the defensive side from that particular, time frame. But I personally, if I had to say, Simeon Rice would be the next name to go on the Buccaneers Ring of Honor. What do you think?
You know what? Where I can agree with you that I think Simeon Rice deserves it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he's going to be the next guy. I think the next guy does come from the offensive side. And hear me out. Martin Gramatica. We had mentioned it previously that he, could possibly be one of the next ones. With everything going on, I could see him being that guy. And there's nothing wrong with it. I mean, he is still ahead of Mike Evans on this, but he is the team's all-time leading scorer. That's crazy coming from a guy who kicked field goals and extra points their entire career.
That also showed how shitty our offense was.
That just tells you that man deserves it, because, and I'm gonna bounce off a Buccaneer great T.D. Ahana when he says he don't deserve it because that defense belongs before he does. If that defense was so great, why is Gramatica putting up as many points as defense allowing? If Gramatica wasn't that great, how were we winning games during times that we were not able to be in the end zone, but we had to rely on Gramatica's kicks?
To bounce off of that comment, and to throw my opinion on that statement, without the defense, there was no victory for us in that time frame for the majority, and we can both acknowledge that. Now, that being said, without the little bit of offense that Brad Johnson, Keyshawn Johnson, Mike Allstott, and all of our work done and all those guys, could produce points, and on average, we were scoring 13 to 17 points a game, which even back then wasn't nothing. Now it's like 28, 29, 30 points a game on average for, your great teams. But back then it was like 21, 22, 23 points you needed to win the game. Now it's a little bit higher, but at the same time, without Gramatica, equivocally, which I'm saying equally, the statement that Cheetah made, you wouldn't have the wins without Gramatica kicking those field goals, because we'd be short 3 points. Because if you look at all those games, we didn't allow teams to score, but we didn't score a lot of points. So meant the games were really close. So a lot of our games come within 1 point or one score, of the victory. And those extra points and those field goals were incredibly important. Now, let's go to a big factor when it comes to the Hall of Fame and Ring of Honors for certain teams. The off the field shit. Bro, Martin Gramatica has been doing things in the Tampa area since the day he retired, and he stays in the news because of what he does to build up the community and the people in the community and help and benefit the community. Because his success, he's got what he's got this little shop, and we had this little watch party at one of it. What is it, a donut shop or what is this place down in Tampa? He's got the cheesecake.
Cheesecake Factory.
No, he owns a business. He's a part owner of a business, and it's like, I want to say it was it cakes or something like that. Well, they had this a few years back. They had this little Buccaneer celebration, and he was out there, and like I stepped back because, like I mentioned earlier in the show, we've been around this game so much and interacted with this game so much that it's almost normal to interact with NFL players. For me. I don't get starstruck. I mean, let's be real. If I were to meet Tom Brady, I've never met Tom Brady, and have a 10-second conversation, I'd probably be starstruck. I mean, I'm a huge fan of Tom Brady's, but for the most part, I can look at a 6'3", NFL player and have a conversation with him the same way I can have one with you. At this point in my life, the way Gramatica interacts with the fans, he never gave you that feeling of he was better. He always, I mean, you look at the way he pushes his kids. His kids are fantastic. I think his son's a place kicker at
USF.
USF, yeah, at USF.
Following his daddy and his uncle's footsteps.
Absolutely.
Bro,
I'm telling you right now. Rice,
hey, wait. Just wait for the Bucs to call Nico Gramatica for the next fucking place kicker for the Bucs.
Bro, don't even play on my emotions. I would be super stoked for that. I would be super fucking stoked for that.
That would be so. Hey, I'd be all for it.
Automatic or Gramatica, in my opinion, to bounce off the segue of the topic, I'm going to stick to my guns and look, just like if you had Troy Vincent out here, for the New England Patriots, do you think he's going to pick a wide receiver? No, he's going to pick a defensive player. Brian Dawkins, if he's commentating on the game, he's not. I'm a defensive guy, so I'm staying on my path with Simeon Rice. But let me say, I will not be not just disappointed. I will be grateful if I'm wrong and Martin Gramatica is inducted this season into the Ring of Honor. There is no question about it. He is class personified. He is an all-time NFL great. And in that in itself is a deserving notch for your team that he spent most of his career with.
Yeah. And bro, that would be great. I hope he is the next one. And I hope he's there and in it, because he's probably the only kicker we'll ever have that is worth that nod. And we've had some notable kickers throughout our team's roster, throughout our organization's career.
Did we draft any in the second round that were notable?
Hey,
just because of your disdain for that guy, I love bringing it up, and I love the look of your face.
Just know that's for you. That's you, Cimaho fans. That's y'all's boy.
Look,
I put him in that. Hey, that's y'all's kicker right there, my man. Y'all thought that was the next.
I mean, from if you're talking college play, yeah, that motherfucker was badass. But as soon as that boy crossed the line into the NFL, the pressure of just being in that league destroyed that kid.
Yeah, we'll call it pressure.
Well, look, it's been a long show, but I got one more thing I want to talk about.
Hey, well, just to give you a lead for that. I hope you don't like drafting kickers on your fantasy football teams.
No, I don't. I don't at all. I'm a defensive guy, and I'm more apt for this. I'm more when I pick my fantasy team, and I pick a fantasy team, I look more towards the defensive skill points more than I do field goals and extra points. Because if you throw, I mean, honestly, if you throw 20, 25 of the 32 plus place kickers and extra point kickers in the NFL in there, I promise you a few defensive ends or a few outside linebackers or a few safeties or a few cornerbacks are going to get a shitload of stats every week on certain teams based on the system they're in. So for me, I don't focus as much, not saying I don't pay attention to the kind of kicker they got when I'm picking a defense, but I focus, the defense is going to be better for me than the kicker position on any choice I have when it comes to picking defense place kicking.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Unless you got Justin Tucker. Now,
yeah, no doubt.
Speaking of fantasy football and all that, you doing it this year?
Yes, I am. Actually, this year, I actually won second place the last 2 years. I'm pretty good at it. I play the money fantasy, but as ManicBuc and the founder of the Plunder, in season 2 of the Plunder, we've come up and we've stepped up our game. We've got a lot better view of the show. I feel the structure of our show is 10 times better than it was last year. Mm-hmm. And also, we're, like I said before last week, we're going to interact with you guys a hell of a lot more. So pay attention. Coming this week will be the details to predate our first annual Plunder Fantasy Football League. I'm not sure if there's going to be a buy-in. I feel like if you put a buy-in too, it gives you something to focus on. And week to week on a long-term league, it's really hard to gain and keep everybody's interest, especially the few that are down. And the bottom, after a certain time, they, start fading, and all of a sudden you don't see them adjusting their lineups every week, and you know who's winning and who's already lost. Well, regardless, there will be a prize for the winner of the Plunder Fantasy Football League. We're likely to have 12 players in the league. And if we have an overwhelming abundance of people that want to participate, I could potentially go up to 20. I'm not going to go up to any further, but 12 to 20 is where I'm looking at.
Now, let me pause you real quick. I did that in 2021 with Crew Life.
Yeah.
Don't go above 12 because you start getting stuck drafting players that nobody knows who the fuck they are and they don't ever see time. Keep it
and those kind of leagues are really good for people like me and you, though. That's the only leagues that those are good for, because you can't put an average person in there like that.
If we have an influx, what we'll do is we'll run 2 leagues if need be, and we'll split it.
That's what I was just about to say. We could potentially run 2 leagues if that's something we want to do.
2 leagues, and we'll have 2 competing leagues.
Absolutely. And again, I'm not sure if there's going to be a buy-in. What the buy-in will be? It won't be over $20.
No, we won't do any buy-in. But here's what we'll do: we're going to run the free entry this year. If it's 2 leagues, it's 2 leagues. If that happens, let's go head to head. My champion and your champion, we will do a prize for.
Okay, so here's the thought: if we have 1 league,
and then the highest scoring champion from whatever league will be overall the Plunder Fantasy Football champion.
Yes, and the champions, I'm not sure what it will be. It won't be cash. No. The only way there would be a cash winning is if there was a buy-in. But no matter what, the champion will get something from the Plunder, as well as a plaque. The plaque is going to be a commemorative, but there will be, a prize, for the winner of the Plunder Fantasy Football League, either 1A or 1B if we have 2. And then you also have, if we have 2, what we'll do is make it to where both of the leagues end, and we still have a week to compete for champion versus champion, outright. So the way I'm gonna set it up, we've got plenty of time to set it up. We've got plenty of time to sign up. I will make a post with all the credentials and where the format's going to be. I'm still researching on exactly what format I want to use as far as the Fantasy Football League goes. But I will post that info this coming week, probably after the show airs this week.
Okay.
So I look forward to that. Look forward to that a bunch. Well, look, we've got an hour and 28 minutes into this show, and we only had 4 topics, and we technically talked about one of those topics last week. We really did good with keeping the conversations going and putting a lot of information out there. I want to thank you again for taking part in the Plunder. I want to thank everybody who has taken the time out of their day, their busy ass schedule, to stop and watch and listen to some of the things we've had to say. If you're interested, or if you've got something you want us to talk about, if you've got a question, if you've got an idea of something, if you hear some news, like, bring it to us. I'll bring you on the show and let you break it. I don't have a problem with that. My goal here is to build the best product for Buccaneer Nation and the Bucs fans and crew that we can every week, week in and week out, that gives them the ability for at least one more day out of the 3-day week that we deal with football, on a live level, to be able to interact even more and take part in this, in a game that we all love very so much passionately.
Absolutely, man. And you know what? It's kind of crazy. We're recording right now. This will be out on Tuesday. Wait till we go live, man. It's going to be nuts.
It's going to be crazy. I can't wait, brother. I can't wait. I cannot wait, because now with this particular genre, we're only talking football. So if you can imagine the different levels of access where we can reach all these fans. And look, I've got people in the Plunder following me that can't stand the fucking Bucs. But because of who I am and the kind of thing that I have and the passion that I bring, they love watching. And that's what I want. If you want to come up here and we're facing your team next week and you want to come talk shit on the Plunder, look, bring it, baby. Let's go. Let's debate. Let's go. Let's get at it.
Yes, sir.
But that being said, we'll hold that for another time. It's getting late. I want to say thank you for running a 90-minute show with me. We've had a great topic. I really appreciate your insight, and I hope to see you Monday night. Look, let this guy give you a little segue into Monday night before we get out of here. Take it over, BücDad.
Hey, all I'm going to say is Raw's going to be lit. But the after show, the after party on Pancakes and Power Bombs at 11 p.m., you ain't going to miss it. And you're going to want to stay around for the whole thing, because we got some very interesting shit to cap off. So, for BücDad, ManicBuc, this is season 2 of the Plunder.
Let's go, baby. See you next week.